Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take the sources you send us and really dig into the ideas and insights.
That's right.
Today, we're looking at Raymond J. Bruni's book, The Art of Being Bullied, Reframing Trauma One Masterpiece at a Time. And what's immediately striking, right off the bat, is the core idea. He's using, artificial intelligence to take these incredibly raw, negative experiences of bullying
Right.
and transform them into visual art. So the book isn't just, a memoir. It's packed with these pieces like a gallery.
It really is a gallery of these reframe moments. And for our exploration today, we're going right back to the beginning, the foundation of his story.
His childhood years.
Yeah, childhood through grade school, just as he lays it out in the book.
Okay. So for you listening, our mission here really is to try and understand those early imprints.
Yeah.
The roots of the trauma he faced, but also maybe the beginnings of resilience.
Exactly, as the book shows it. So where do we start? There's so much here.
Well, that locker room incident seems like a crucial starting point. It casts such a long shadow.
Okay, let's set the scene. The book describes this really unsettling quiet after gym class. Raymond's been playing that fetch game, kind of lingering.
Right. Pushing his luck a bit with time.
Yeah, knowing he needs to get to speech class, but the coach has this hard rule. You have to shower, no skipping.
And that setting itself, the locker room, cold concrete, maybe echoing sounds, the steam. It just feels vulnerable, doesn't it?
Totally. Creates the sense of unease even before anything happens. That coach's rule probably meant nothing by it, but it just sets the stage.
Definitely.
So he goes in, the showers are murky, steps are cold, and then that dawning realization, he's not alone.
4 figures looming in the steam.
Yeah. He tries to just, get under the water, mind his own business, hope they leave him alone, but then Damian Pierce starts.
The taunting begins.
Yeah. And Ace Bartram and Wes Selina jump right in. They physically pull him out of the shower stream.
Force him to his knees.
Yeah.
It's described as this grotesque ritual. Very violating.
Deeply humiliating, yeah. And the book is clear. This wasn't just like random meanness.
No, felt orchestrated. Especially when Jensen Tate shows up.
Right. Emerges from the steam like some kind of villain. And his words, just chillin'.
That declaration he makes?
Today's the day this faggot learns to suck cock.
Yeah.
Wow. So raw, so hateful. It just sticks with you.
And that line, that whole event, it connects directly back to the book's title, right?
Yeah.
This is exactly the kind of trauma he's trying to reframe later.
Precisely. It's about weaponizing shame, trying to dehumanize someone.
Absolutely. And thinking about the bigger picture, he doesn't call his healing process a journey. He calls it a quest.
Yeah, I noticed that. A quest lasting over 40 years.
Which really emphasizes the effort, the struggle involved. It wasn't just a path he walked. It was something he had to actively fight for. Not a quick fix at all.
And he paints this pretty bleak picture of the 1970s for him. 10 years, basically.
A whole decade of torment.
Starting in 3rd grade Catholic school, right through to high school graduation in 1980. Relentless.
But what makes it even worse, I think, is who was involved. It wasn't just the kids.
No, that's such a critical point. He talks about teachers, nuns, priests, coaches, even the school bus driver, and a family member.
That's a profound betrayal of trust, isn't it? These are the adults supposed to protect you when they join in or allow it.
Where do you even turn? It must have completely shattered his sense of safety. The long-term effects of that kind of betrayal, huge.
Huge. And the abuse itself, it wasn't just name-calling, was it?
Not at all. We've got the public humiliation of fetch, the assault in the locker room we just discussed. He mentions a terrifying speech class.
A nun's twisted discipline.
That bus driver's proposition, which is just awful. And he even links one bully to, becoming a national headline later for terrible crimes.
It's just a staggering amount of abuse sustained over years.
It really is. And the book argues that the core emotional weapon used throughout all this was shame.
Yes. Bullying as an exercise in shaming. Trying to sever connections, isolate someone based on, perceived differences.
Yeah.
Making them feel flawed, unworthy.
And for him, he identified this sort of trifecta of shame triggers, things they targeted.
What were they again?
First, his physical appearance, the red hair, the freckles, something he couldn't change.
Okay.
Second, this feeling of, weakness, not fitting the mold of masculinity at the time, maybe tied into how he saw his father.
Wait, that pressure to conform.
And third, his way of thinking, more right brain, creative, intuitive maybe, which sometimes came across in ways others labeled effeminate.
It's awful how things that make someone unique become targets. And his reaction, like many kids, was to try and hide, right? He developed a mask,
Yeah, a protective persona, trying to blend in, not stand out.
but it didn't work.
No, he says it actually backfired, made him like more of a target because maybe it looked like weakness or fakeness.
It's a tough lesson, isn't it? Trying to hide who you are can sometimes leave you more exposed.
Yeah, it highlights this kind of profound truth that the things we try to hide because we're ashamed of them, they might actually be our strengths, our assets.
Like the Rudolph story you mentioned. The very thing that made him different was his gift.
Exactly. That shift in perspective is so important for resilience. But the bullying clearly impacted his relationships too.
Oh, definitely. Talks about finding it hard to make friends, pushing people away almost defensively.
Yeah, preemptive strike kind of thing.
And retreating inwards
Mhm.
into his own head is the only safe space. That isolation is just brutal.
And this leads him to one of his recurring insights in the book, what he calls Ray's profound truths.
Okay.
To be silent in the face of bullying is to be complicit. Puts the onus on everyone, not just those directly involved.
That's powerful. And, from a psychological perspective, that chronic shame he experienced, it has real, documented consequences.
Like.
Well, you often see things like social withdrawal, kids internalizing all those negative messages, believing they're flawed, a constant fear of being judged or exposed.
Self-blame too, probably.
Absolutely. Low self-esteem, avoiding social situations. It's not just feeling bad in the moment. It can really shape development long-term.
Which ties into another of his profound truths, doesn't it? About power.
Which one is that?
The power bullies have is the power we give them through our fears and silence. It suggests there's agency there, even if it's hard to find. Confronting the fear, speaking up.
Yeah, reclaiming that power, it's central to his reframing process. Okay, so really grasp at this, we probably need to touch on his early family life a bit more.
Right, the dynamics there. His maternal grandmother, Susan, seems like a really key figure early on.
The protector.
Definitely. There's that story his mom told him about his dad in a moment of frustration, throwing baby Raymond into the crib face first.
Oh, wow.
And Susan just stepping in immediately, fiercely protective. Sounds like she was his guardian angel almost.
And he remembers her funeral when he was only 4.
Yeah, clutching a rosary. A really vivid, poignant memory. Quite a contrast to his relationship with his father, it seems.
Well, his father's view is more traditional for the time, maybe. Children should be seen and not heard.
Right. And Raymond describes himself as having a sarcastic mouth, pushing buttons. You can see how that dynamic might clash. Feeling unheard?
Definitely. Then there's school. Started in public school, right?
Yeah, briefly. He mentions a really embarrassing incident in first grade with a girl named Tammy, public humiliation.
Ugh, tough start.
But also some good moments, like friendships with Bridget and Warren, riding in that old VW bug, little glimpses of normalcy.
But then came the switch. 3rd grade, Catholic school.
And that seems like a major turning point. The noisy construction, nuns he describes as angry.
And that lunch bag incident. So specific, so cruel.
Yeah, Steve calling him a fag, Tom taunting him about, balls, and then crushing his lunch. Just senseless cruelty.
A brutal introduction to that new environment. And his description of the classmates there as vampires.
Powerful metaphor, like they were draining the life out of him.
Yeah. And through all this escalating stuff, he decides not to tell his mom, Anna Mae.
Which is interesting. He knew she was fiercely protective, right? So maybe he was trying to shield her. Or afraid her intervention would make things worse.
Could be either, or both. She sounds like a classic 60s housewife in many ways. Family, faith, education were the pillars.
Right. Modest middle-class life. But they prioritized Catholic school for all 5 kids. Mandatory Sunday church.
Seems like the structure of their lives.
And there's that little detail about him calling her Anna Mae, not Mom. Partly to annoy his dad, he says.
Suggests a closer bond with her, maybe? And maybe some friction with his father over that closeness?
He implies that, yeah. Even says his father didn't really earn the title dad in his eyes. But Anna Mae, she sounds like the source of warmth. Hugs, cooking, gifts, saying I love you.
A vital counterbalance to the negativity elsewhere. And she had that insight too, didn't she? About him finding deep love someday.
Yeah, like a little seed of hope planted early on, hinting at things beyond this period.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. The Christmas Story with the Partridge Family album.
Yeah. A lighter moment, but revealing. He's excited, rips open the present. It's the album.
And Anna Mae's reaction is mixed.
Kind of amused, maybe a little horrified, like unspoken judgment. This is a girly gift for a boy.
Right, those subtle but powerful gender expectations.
And he defends liking it, acknowledges the show was cheesy, but hey, the music had good songwriters, session musicians. He still defends it.
Good for him. But it taps into that whole societal pressure, doesn't it? Those guilt trips, as he calls them. The narrow box boys were supposed to fit into.
Leads right to his phrase, boys who can't catch the ball, feeling inadequate if you didn't fit that specific mold.
And this ties perfectly into another of his profound truths.
Which one?
Reframing our shame shapes our narrative from victim to victor. It's about taking control of the story, right? Not letting the shame define you.
Exactly. Okay, so moving into Gallery 2 Brushstrokes of Shame. This section details more specific incidents. First up, Cub Scouts. Shame rains down.
What an evocative title.
Isn't it? His dad wanted him to join, but Raymond dreaded it, being stuck with his tormentors.
And then it literally rains the whole time.
Yeah, mirroring his mood. He ends up isolated in a cabin with the bullies, finally breaks down, crying.
And his dad's reaction.
Annoyed, embarrassed, not understanding. Raymond says it just shredded what was left of their relationship.
Oof. That's rough. Then there's phys ed. Someone else's game.
Yeah, feeling totally out of place, no interest or skill in sports like softball, Bridget trying to get him to hustle.
But he just feels like an alien, playing by rules he doesn't get. The sweat, the forced camaraderie.
Ew. And his dad wasn't involved in sports with him, reinforcing that feeling of inadequacy maybe. But he has this realization
What's that?
that hustle is a muscle you need for survival when you're bullied. Not about the game, but about getting through it.
Wow. That's quite an insight. Okay, next, the class field trip. Got off guard.
He thought maybe he'd get a break from the bullying for a day. False hope.
What happened?
Toby Poole shoves a baseball glove right in his face. And Raymond's first thought is, don't let anyone see, don't let Anime see.
That constant vigilance, managing appearances, even while being attacked.
Yeah. Anime asks him later if he's okay, and he struggles to explain. Just feeling singled out. Again. Foreshadows more betrayal, too.
Which leads into Warren's betrayal. You're dead to me. This is his friend, right?
Yeah, they walk to school together every day. A small ritual of safety, maybe.
And then one day, Warren just abandons him.
Yeah.
Walks on the other side of the street.
Exactly. Leaves him totally exposed. Raymond kind of gets it, self-preservation, but the hurt, the disappointment, it's sharp, no righteous moment, just the harsh reality.
That vicious cycle of fear versus self-preservation, facing the demons alone, brutal.
And finally in this gallery, the first communion party. As I saw him,
Should be a happy day.
should be. Joyful atmosphere, family around. Then suddenly his father explodes at him for running inside.
An outburst.
Yeah, grabs him, drags him outside, public shaming, bloody nose, just shocking violence over nothing.
Oh my God. Did anyone step in?
His Uncle Roger did, thankfully. But his father seemed unconcerned. Raymond calls it a small victory, though.
Why?
Because the extended family saw it. They saw his father's behavior for what it was.
I see. A painful kind of validation.
Huh?
Okay, let's move to Gallery 3, Saints and Sinners. This focuses on authority figures, right? Starting with the nuns, the USS Catholic Church.
Huh. Quite a title. This is 5th grade, new wing of the school, classrooms run by nuns he describes as, well, tyrants.
Harsh words. Mean, cruel, bitter, angry, sadistic.
Yeah, he doesn't mince words. It says his troubles actually multiplied. The teachers were worse than the kids. A soul-crushing experience.
Debunks that whole cliche about stern but loving nuns, basically.
Completely. Though later, as an adult, she tries to understand the perspective a bit.
How so?
He speculates. Maybe they felt marginalized. Maybe they were forced into teaching without training, overcrowded classrooms, using harsh methods for control.
Doesn't excuse it, but adds some context.
Right. He suggests maybe these brides of Christ were disillusioned, frustrated women trapped in their own kind of prison. He calls listeners who went through similar things silent survivors.
Gotten collateral damage.
Wow.
And the whole system, the USS Catholic Church, was taking on water, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. Then he zooms in on specific nuns, Sister Grace Louise, to spit in the face of Jesus.
Sounds intense.
He sets it up. He was generally a good student. His mom, Anna Mae, was active in the parish, even studying religious studies. Nuns maybe resented her education and took it out on the kids.
Plausible, sadly.
Sister Grace Louise was physically imposing, intimidating, no patience, and she singles him out over a math problem.
What happens?
He's confused, thinks he hears a classmate whisper 10, so he says 10. Sister Grace Louise interrogates him. He admits he overheard it.
Because she just lays into him.
Public humiliation. Calls him a prime example of failure. equates his mistake to spitting in the face of Jesus. Just devastating. Leads to conferences, intense shame, anxiety.
And did he ever find out the right answer?
Yeah.
Nope. Never clarified. Years later, he tried to contact the mother house, found out she died just 6 months earlier. Lots of unresolved feelings there.
Wow. Okay, then Sister Minerva, twisted game.
Another stern one. Simmering anger. Unpredictable. She'd shift from yelling to suddenly singing hymns.
Unsettling.
The incident here. She yells a name, G-Reg-U, but Raymond hears Ray. He answers timidly.
And she explodes.
Yep. Summons him to the front, brings up his problems with Sister Grace Louise and another teacher. Just pure humiliation again. He makes this silent vow not to let her break him.
The internal battles they force. Then there's the Dalton Fox scare titled Confronted. This wasn't an authority figure, though.
No, this was pure psychological torment based on a rumor. Heard on Friday that a bully, Dalton Fox, was going to beat him up on Monday.
Oh, no, the whole weekend.
Consumed by fear, absolute dread, imagining the fight, planning avoidance tactics, he vividly describes the fight he expected.
But it never happened. Nope. Monday comes. Nothing. Dalton Fox doesn't even look at him. The realization that he'd spent the whole weekend tortured by a rumor. Just exhausting.
The mental toll is incredible, even when nothing physical occurs. Okay, so how did he cope with all this? He must have developed mechanisms.
He did, some healthier than others. First, something he calls astral projection, or the gift.
Like out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, at night, couldn't sleep, ruminating. He describes feeling like he was slipping out of his body, floating near the ceiling, looking down at himself and his brother Jay in their bunk beds.
Wow. Really specific details.
Very. Seeing the room, the hallway door, the windows, but not moving during it. He thought it was a spiritual gift.
And what did therapy suggest?
Dissociation. A common coping mechanism for trauma, where you mentally detach, feel like you're floating above the situation.
Makes sense.
But Raymond pushes back a bit, saying it happened in his bed, a safe place, not during the trauma itself. He still holds on to the idea of it being maybe spontaneous astral projection.
Interesting tension there between his experience and the psychological explanation. What else?
Guitar lessons. Strumming my pain. Anna May encouraged this.
A more positive outlet.
Definitely. Started with a 6-string, moved to a 12-string. Peter, Paul, and Mary songs. He really dove into it after school.
Became a refuge.
Totally. His lifeline, his sanctuary. He connects it to that Roberta Flack song, Killing Me Softly, like he was strumming his pain with his fingers. The guitar was solace.
That's great. A healthy outlet.
Mostly. He does foreshadow that the guitar also played a role in him becoming a bully himself later, which is complex.
Okay. Then there's isolating his brother. That sounds less positive.
Yeah, this is where the coping turns inward in a negative way. He retreated so much, even at home. Sharing a room with his younger brother Jay became another battleground.
Why?
Shame, maybe. Needing solitude. He'd lock Jay out of the bedroom every day after school just to be alone with his guitar. Jay would bang on the door.
And Raymond reacted badly.
Yeah, his frustration and pain spilled over into cruelty towards Jay. He recognizes now that Jay was just an innocent victim, an obstacle to his moments of peace. He was reflecting his own pain onto his brother.
That's tough. It shows how trauma can ripple outwards. Okay, what about this drum and bugle corps thing? The Green Dome of the Damned.
This is a bizarre one. His father decides they should join this corps, but the place they practiced,
Where was it?
this rundown, creepy old campus that used to be a home for troubled, usually pregnant, unwed young women.
Oh, wow. Setting the scene.
Totally. He describes creepy buildings, a green-domed chapel, a pool that looked like something from a horror movie, an abandoned nun's cemetery. Gothic vibes all around.
Sounds unsettling, but maybe captivating, too.
Exactly. He's handed a flashlight and a map to go find his assigned bugle in one of the abandoned buildings.
Seriously. Alone.
Yep. Walks through this dark, empty auditorium, up a huge staircase, shadows, imagining whispers, thinking about the bullying that might have happened there.
Connecting his experience to the place.
Yeah. He sees some color guard girls watching the Rhoda wedding episode on TV in a back room, such a specific, grounding detail. Gets the bugle, but never really learns to play.
He was more interested in the place itself.
Seems like it. He renamed it the Green Dome of the Damned, referencing Village of the Damned. He learned it used to be a self-sustaining village for these girls. Heard rumors.
Like what?
That all the nuns were called Sister Mary. And, more heartbreakingly, that babies born there were often taken away immediately. He felt this deep heartache trapped inside these walls.
Emotional resonance.
Huge symbolic significance for him, equating his pain with the pain he imagined those girls felt. He eventually convinced his dad to let him quit without ever learning the bugle.
What a strange, intense interlude. And there was one more thing there. The two girls on the staircase.
Yeah, as they were leaving the Green Dome one time, he sees two little girls playing with dolls under a flickering light on this grand sweeping staircase.
In this dilapidated place.
Yeah. Unsupervised. They just cheerfully wave at him. It adds another layer of just strangeness and mystery to his fascination with the place. Okay, so high school. Ray really doesn't pull any punches here. He calls moving from grade school the murky sewer straight into high school, which he calls a tainted swamp.
Wow. That imagery immediately tells you how he felt. And this was an all-male Catholic high school.
Yep. And he says your value there was mostly about skill with a ball, sports.
Not exactly spiritual enlightenment.
No, he says Jesus was basically an afterthought compared to jocks or even guys who, got someone pregnant. That apparently boosted your status.
That's quite the social hierarchy. And he mentions the school color, lavender.
Yeah, which he finds deeply ironic, linking it to predators. It just underlines how negative and, frankly, unsafe that environment felt to him.
So what was his first move? How did he try to handle it?
Well, his first instinct was to try and disappear. Embrace irrelevance, as he puts it.
Just try to stay off the radar.
Exactly. But, teenage dynamics, especially in what sounds like a really competitive place, it doesn't always work. He describes it as crush or be crushed.
Yeah, that pressure to either dominate or be dominated. Trying to fade away can sometimes just make you more of a target, unfortunately. It signals weakness in that kind of system.
But here's what's interesting. Even while all this was going on, Ray says he held on to these three, core truths.
Okay.
1, he knew the bullying had an expiration date graduation. 2, he realized the bullies were just temporary figures. They wouldn't control his future.
That takes some perspective, especially when you're in the thick of it.
Totally. And 3, maybe the most surprising, he believed his weaknesses, what people picked on him for, would actually become strengths later on.
Wow. That's quite profound for someone going through that.
It is. But outwardly, he was still trying to hide, growing his hair longer, trying to physically conceal himself, even with that inner knowledge.
That really speaks to resilience, doesn't it? Having those internal anchors, belief in the future, understanding the present won't last, even if your outward actions don't fully match yet. It provides a foundation.
Then he shifts gears a bit, talks about friendship in a section called Fires of Friendship. He had 2 really close friends.
So there was some positive connection.
Definitely. They did all the normal teenage stuff, hanging out, movies, proms. He was even best man at one of their weddings later on. These friendships sound absolutely vital.
Oh, for sure. Those bonds, that sense of normalcy and just belonging somewhere, must have been a lifeline amidst all the other stuff. A buffer.
Yeah. But what's really fascinating is what he calls the unspoken truth.
Okay.
They never actually talked about the bullying. Even though it was happening, it was like this silent agreement not to bring it up within the friendship.
That's complex. Maybe focusing on the good stuff, the shared positive moments, was its own form of support, like protecting that space.
Could be. He makes a point of not sharing their stories either, which feels respectful.
Yeah, respecting their boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay, so after friendship, the tone changes again.
It does, dramatically. Section called Omen. It starts with Ray watching an old movie, The Reincarnation of Peter Proud.
I vaguely remember that one.
He was really disturbed by it, especially this climax scene where Margot Kidder attacks someone in a boat.
Okay, so that scene really stuck with him. Movies can do that, tap into underlying anxieties.
Totally, because it then triggers this nightmare. Ray's in a boat being attacked, and he recognizes the attacker. It's this kid from school, Declan McMahon.
Declan McMahon. And how does Ray describe him?
It's unsettling. He calls him both bully and bullied, a pseudo-stalker and tormentor. Says he had this weird look, always wore black, had electrified eyes, talked nonsense, laughed inappropriately.
Sounds like Declan might have been struggling quite a bit himself. Being both bully and bullied often points to a cycle of abuse.
Yeah, and he was constantly calling Ray piece of shit, plus there was physical stuff, pushing, shoving, kicking.
Rough, and they encountered each other often.
Daily. In this specific little anteroom between the cafeteria and the hallway, Ray saw it as a refuge from the main chaos, but Declan was always there.
A shared space.
And Ray got this weird sense that Declan, even while tormenting him, almost needed his presence, like seeking attention, maybe? It's a very strange dynamic he describes.
That does happen. Bullying isn't always just about power. Sometimes it's a really twisted way of trying to connect or get noticed. Very harmful, obviously, but complex.
So Ray sees this nightmare as an omen, right? A warning about Declan.
Makes sense.
But then Declan leaves the school after freshman year. Problem solved, you'd think?
Oh, okay. So the immediate threat was gone.
Yeah, but Ray ends that section saying, fate had yet to play all her cards.
Ooh, foreshadowing. So maybe not the last encounter. Create some tension there.
Definitely. So how did he cope with all this day-to-day pressure? He talks about developing these mind games, sort of unconsciously.
Ah, coping mechanisms. Like what?
One revolved around Olivia Newton-John, actually.
Really?
He found her album Come On Over and just got completely absorbed, especially the song Don't Throw It All Away.
Uh-huh.
He says it became like a shield of musical armor. He'd mentally play it during bullying incidents with McMahon, during dodgeball, on the bus.
Music is so powerful for that. It can be an escape, a comfort, even give you strength.
Right.
That a specific song became this protective shield for him. Wow.
He mentions feeling like he could never possibly thank her back then. He was too trapped. But there's a hint, maybe, of future possibility.
A little seed of hope.
Another mind game was just counting, rapidly cycling through the days of the week in his head.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Just over and over.
Yeah, as a way to distract himself when things got really intense, especially, he says, on the school bus.
That makes sense. Simple mental distractions can actually be really effective for managing anxiety in the moment, focusing inward, regaining some tiny bit of control.
And speaking of the bus,
Ugh,
he calls it a daily ordeal.
I can only imagine.
Mornings were bad drivers' high beams blinding him, jarring heavy metal music blasting, which, ironically, maybe offered a little protection from the other kids.
Yeah, an unintended shield, like you said. Sensory overload, but maybe drowning out some of the harassment.
But the ride home? That sounds like pure hell. A mad dash for a front seat to avoid the energized aggressors in the back.
Energized aggressors, that's quite a current.
Insults, things being thrown, and the driver, completely apathetic, didn't care.
That lack of adult intervention is a recurring theme, isn't it? So damaging.
Horribly so. Ray even mentions passing this long cemetery every day and just wishing he was in it, wishing for oblivion.
Oh, man. That just shows the depth of the despair, feeling that trapped.
And then the final humiliation getting off the bus at his stop. Just a crescendo of taunts.
Awful. Just awful.
He includes a quote here, one of his profound truths. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary noise. The bullies don't win when you choose to stay and rewrite your story.
That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Especially coming from someone who felt that despair.
Yeah. But then there's this incident on the bus that's just beyond.
Okay.
One afternoon, the driver, the silent one, he sits down next to Ray.
The driver did?
Yeah. And invites Ray, who's like 14, naive, mostly thinking about getting his driver's license, soon invites him to go have sex with him and his friends in a park.
What? Gosh. That's predatory. Unbelievable. An adult,
Yeah.
the bus driver.
Yep. Ray was just stunned. He didn't even fully grasp the implications. His mind was elsewhere, partly just surviving, partly on normal teenage goals like driving.
That disconnect speaks volumes about maybe how detached he had to become to cope and just his innocence in the face of something so predatory and wrong.
And the trauma of it was so intense, he completely blocked it out. Dissociative amnesia.
Completely forgot it happened.
Totally. Until a friend brought it up 30 years later, he had no conscious memory of it.
Wow. That shows how the mind protects itself from overwhelming trauma. The severity of what happened just wiped.
Yeah. Okay, so moving from the bus to phys ed, another source of dread, particularly dodgeball.
Ah, dodgeball. The classic schoolyard humiliation ritual for some.
He felt like a bumbling clown, hated the feeling of being targeted, eliminated. He says, no one truly wins in the game of dodgeball.
That's an interesting perspective. It really mirrored the bullying dynamics he faced everywhere else, didn't it? Feeling vulnerable, ostracized.
Exactly. He talks about the chronic stress, anxiety, low self-esteem it fostered. And then things got worse. They moved phys ed to this old creepy gym
Oh.
with showers in the basement, down these steep stairs. Just an unsettling vibe from the start.
Setting the stage for something bad.
And there's this routine. This bully, Jensen Tate, would make Ray play fetch. Yeah, Tate would throw the dodgeball way out into the stadium stands on purpose, and Ray had to go retrieve it. over and over.
While the coach did nothing.
Ignored it completely. And Ray remembers these specific sad songs playing over the gym speakers, like It's Sad to Belong, an ironic soundtrack to his humiliation.
That's just cruel. The repetition, the coach's complicity, the music.
Wow. And then, one day, the trap is sprung. He goes down to those cold, murky basement showers and realizes he's alone with 4 other guys.
Oh, no.
Damian Pierce, Ace Bartram, Russ Salina, and the orchestrator, Jensen Tate.
This sounds bad. Really bad.
It is. They force him to kneel.
Yeah.
And then they flap their flaccid penises against his face.
Oh, my God. That's sexual assault. Humiliation taken to a horrific level.
Utterly grotesque. And then Tate himself arrives, and his penis is hard.
No.
And he says, today's the day this faggot learns to suck cock.
Jesus. That's terrifying. What did Ray do?
His internal thought was just pure defiance. I will bite it off, motherfucker. He describes the whole thing feeling like slow motion, and then suddenly, powerfully...
A Newton-John.
Yeah, don't throw it all away, just floods his mind right at the crescendo. His mental shield kicks in.
Wow. Even in that absolute terror, his mind found that refuge, that internal strength is incredible.
And just then, they hear the next gym class arriving upstairs. The sound makes the 4 boys panic and flee.
Saved by the bell, almost literally.
Yeah. One of them grabs Ray's towel as they run out, leaving him there, naked, exposed, shaking, with those song lyrics still echoing.
Absolutely devastating. The violation, the fear, the humiliation, and then just left like that.
And it doesn't end there. Speech class. Another scheduled torture session, it sounds like.
There's more. Oh, man.
He arrives 20 minutes late one day. Teacher immediately calls on him to give his informative speech. He gets to the podium, and it's like facing a firing squad.
The whole class waiting.
Yeah, and Russ Salina, one of the guys from the shower, he's in the audience, won't make eye contact. Ugh, the shame. Or maybe just cowardice.
And then it starts. Just this relentless barrage of verbal abuse. Horrible stuff.
Like what?
Fuck you, faggot. Small like your dick. Girly little bitch. Your mother should have aborted you. Why don't you just go die? Paper wads thrown. Just hateful, homophobic bile.
Throughout the entire speech.
The entire speech. And the teacher.
Let me guess. Did nothing.
Nothing. Ray calls him Mr. His Name Eyes Insignificant.
Allowed it to happen every single time Ray spoke. The adult in the room just let it happen.
That is just blatant complicity. Enabling that level of abuse. It's appalling.
There was one weird moment, though. Near the end of one speech, a known bully actually told the others to shut up.
Really. A moment of something. Decency.
Maybe. Unexpected, anyway. Oh, and the topic of his informative speech during all this.
Was it?
Bees. He was trying to give a speech about bees while being verbally crucified.
Yeah, the absurdity is just painful.
So reflecting on all this, Ray titles a section Complicit. He talks about the shower assault as this profound violation, the terror, the humiliation, but especially the shame. He says shame is why he stayed silent for so long.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Shame is such a powerful silencer for victims of abuse. It's isolating.
But he pushes back hard against the victim label. He says it takes a victim to make a victim. He doesn't want apologies, feels there's no real justice, just what happens, happens. He wonders where they all ended up.
That's a complex stance. Reclaiming agency by rejecting the label, but maybe also a way of coping with the lack of justice or closure.
He contrasts the shower incident, horrific as it was, with speech class, calling that a scheduled and regular humiliation, and he comes back again to condemn the teacher. That one just hangs there.
Yeah.
Complicit.
It applies to so many people in his story, unfortunately. The bullies, the enablers.
But then finally, junior year seems to mark a turning point.
Okay, some light.
Yeah. He gets jobs. 3 of them. Zentigo, Ponderosa, and Gold Circle.
Wow, busy kid. That must have shifted things.
Big time. Especially Gold Circle, working in the camera and records department. He talks about feeling responsible, reliable, working with people. It was a sanctuary.
A space outside the school, outside the bullying, where he could just be competent, normal.
Exactly. A place where he didn't have to be constantly vigilant. A breath of fresh air, like you said earlier.
That makes a huge difference, building self-esteem in a different context.
And having those jobs changed his perspective on school, too. It started to seem less important. The bullies' power kind of faded, even if they were still around sometimes.
Because he had this other world, this other source of validation.
Right. He even realized his college prep high school, with all its cliques and competition, was actually holding him back from finding himself.
Interesting. The very place meant to prepare him was hindering him. Work gave him that escape and perspective.
Then, another huge moment, getting his driver's license. right on his 16th birthday. Total freedom. Access to the family station wagon. He's clearly grateful to his mom, Anna May, for her support. He even jokes about thinking bullies would have to yield to him at stop signs now.
Huh. A little bit of power back, even if you just imagined. The license is such a huge symbol of independence at that age.
He also shares this really moving story about a friend. This friend offered a ride to his own worst bully.
Seriously, that takes guts.
Apparently, it completely changed their dynamic. This act of courage, maybe kindness. Ray calls it a magical moment and wished he could find ways to do something similar.
Wow, that shows the potential for disruption, even in those harsh dynamics. Unexpected kindness can be disarming.
Okay, shifting to family dynamics again, section too much, too little, too late. He mentions a rare good memory with his dad during a huge blizzard walking across the frozen Ohio River.
A fleeting positive moment.
Fleeting is right, because then it's back to yard work, which was apparently just torture.
Yeah.
His dad deliberately nitpicking, seeming to enjoy Ray's reactions. Emotional manipulation.
Ugh. That inconsistency is so difficult. The hot and cold.
But Ray finds refuge in music again. He's resting during yard work, turns on the radio, and hears Johnny Mathis and Denise Williams singing Too Much, Too Little, Too Late.
That song. Very fitting, maybe.
Totally. And he just has this spontaneous moment of defiance. Gets up on the picnic table, uses the weed trimmers as a microphone, and just belts it out. Full disco moves.
Huh. I love that image. A defiant performance for an audience of one, plus his disapproving dad, probably.
Exactly. Reclaiming his joy, like you said before. He notes how painfully relevant the lyrics were to their relationship. And then he finishes with a mic drop using the trimmers and a pointed comment about his younger brother.
The final act of rebellion in that moment. Good for him.
So finally, graduation. June 2nd, 1980. He calls it the end of the greatest show faux on Earth.
Though, nice touch. Not a fan of high school, clearly.
Not even slightly. Refuses to pose for graduation pictures. Says the negative memories are seared in his brain already. Just surviving felt like the real accomplishment.
I can understand that. For him, it wasn't a celebration, it was an escape.
And he says, the very next day, June 3rd, the bullying just stopped. Vanished. The whole high school negativity evaporated. He dismisses the idea of a permanent record.
Proof that it really did have an expiration date, just like he believed.
He does acknowledge, that other people had good high school experiences, and he envies that, but hopes it wasn't at someone else's expense.
Acknowledging different realities. That's fair.
And then college. He describes it as a cleansing rain. Totally transformative, totally positive.
A complete fresh start.
Yeah. A sanctuary. No sideways glances, no whispers, no projectiles. He thinks part of it was the university was newer, less established hierarchy, no dorms maybe.
Environment makes such a difference. The absence of those triggers allowed him to breathe, probably.
He dove into TV production, loved working in the studio, felt creatively alive. Right brain, rain meter, and overdrive, he says.
Finding his passion, his element. That's fantastic.
And get this, he took another speech course.
Wow. After the trauma of the last one.
Yep. And it went well. He did a demonstration speech using a Polaroid camera, and the audience was respectful. Huge step.
That's major progress. Facing that fear and having a positive outcome.
He even casually mentions a classmate in that course was George Clooney.
Huh. Small world. A little bit of foreshadowing there.
Right. And he has another profound truth. Right brain rain creates a river that refuses to be dammed, flowing into the vast ocean of possibility.
Love that. Captures that creative release and hope.
Now, he does circle back to reflect more on bullying and resilience. He clarifies the difference between wishing for death, like he did passing the cemetery, and actually contemplating suicide. Big difference.
Important distinction.
Yeah.
And he urges people in crisis to get help.
Crucial message. He says he never seriously considered suicide, despite wishing for escape, because he always held on to that belief that the bullying was temporary, that shelf life. He expected a better future.
That hope was his anchor. It's amazing he could maintain it.
He also touches on modern bullying social media. Sees it as something we almost invite in, designed to make us feel bad and harder to escape sometimes.
That's a really relevant point.
Mm-hmm.
The 24/7 nature of online life adds a whole new dimension to it.
And he asks himself that really tough question. Did I somehow allow myself to be bullied?
Oh, that's a heavy one. So common for survivors to grapple with, that self-blame or questioning.
He lists why he was passive. feeling alone, terrified, trying to protect his mom by not causing trouble, being paralyzed by fear, believing fighting back would be worse.
All completely understandable reasons when you're facing that kind of onslaught,
Mhm.
especially alone.
And internalizing the shame, feeling like he deserved it. He uses this metaphor of his emotions being compressed down like a car which is crushed in a junkyard, just numb.
What a powerful image. The way trauma can just shut you down emotionally. Needing therapy later to unpack all that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. He felt fighting back was hopeless, would only bring worse pain. And he rejects being labeled either coward or victim, wants to define himself outside of that experience.
Choosing his own narrative moving forward. Strong stance.
Okay, so the final section we're covering today, family loss and a new beginning. It starts with his father having a terrible accident at work, an explosion, nearly died.
Oh, wow. Did that change things between them?
Nope. Ray says despite the near-death experience, his father's treatment of him stayed exactly the same.
That's really sad, actually. No change, even after facing mortality.
Around this time, his mom considers divorce, and then his dad gets diagnosed with cancer, possibly linked to the burns from the accident.
So a lot happened with his father's health.
Yeah. And then his father dies. The day his body is removed from the house, Ray gets a phone call
About what?
offering him a college internship, like literally the same day.
Whoa, talk about timing. Life and death, endings and beginnings all at once.
Exactly. And his mom, Anna Mae, she knows about the internship offer, and she tells him, go to the station on Sunday, start your life. She schedules the funeral and burial around his internship start date.
Wow, what incredible support from his mother. Putting his future first, even in her grief.
It's huge. So Ray doesn't attend his father's burial. He goes to the internship. He sees it as a rebirth, the start of something new, and, he hopes, exhilarating.
A powerful, symbolic ending to that chapter and a deliberate step into his own life, finally free from that shadow.
His career beginnings.
Let's do it. His entry into TV wasn't exactly gentle.
No, not at all. That first day at Channel 5 sounds incredibly intense.
Right, thrown straight into covering a plane crash.
Yeah, with this photographer, Travis, who sounds, pretty demanding.
And Bruni give his report, feeling okay about it.
And the response is just, stand by. Classic newsroom, you know.
Totally. It just shoves him right into the deep end of that world.
It really says a lot about needing resilience from day one, doesn't it? And grabbing those tough challenges.
It absolutely sets the stage. And then there's the internship thing.
Oh, yeah. It ends.
But he just stays. Works for free.
Which seems, well, maybe a bit crazy, but talk about proving your worth.
Right. And it worked. He lands a full-time job.
And then makes that even bigger leap.
Leaving college, his senior year, to produce Jerry Springer.
I mean, looking back, Springer became this huge cultural thing at Channel 5.
So it connects to this idea of like seeing an opportunity and just going for it, even if it's not the sensible path.
Exactly. Trusting your gut over the conventional route. It's a theme, maybe.
Seems like it. So from that intense news beginning, things shift a bit. He forms an unexpected bond.
With that high-profile city official.
Yeah, the late nights, peppermint schnapps, watching Letterman. It sounds like a time of finding some unexpected acceptance.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Sometimes just feeling seen by one person helps you accept yourself.
Definitely. Find those connections.
And it's in this, like, casual friendship setting that something really profound happened.
The subconscious seizure.
Yeah, that's how he describes it, this moment where he feels kind of taken over.
And involuntarily whispers that he's gay.
And the official's reaction is just amazing, really.
Well,
Sporto.
I'm bi. Now, come on, that's not true. I'm gay too.
Right. And Bruni sees this as his real coming out, not just to the official, but, like, truly to himself.
Wow. Such a pivotal moment, happening in such an unexpected way.
Yeah. But then the story takes a really dark turn, doesn't it?
It really does. The past comes crashing back in the most horrifying way.
The connection to Declan McMahon,
His high school bully.
who became the hitchhiker killer. It's just astonishing.
The idea that Bruni was, working in news, potentially covering stories related to this guy.
Without realizing it was the person who'd made his life hell years before.
Yeah.
Chilling.
And that moment in court. Just brief eye contact, no emotion.
It says so much about that disconnect, the transformation McMahon went through. Just, wow.
And the motive McMahon gave. Needing money for a lawyer for drug trafficking charges.
It's just stark. Tragic.
And following all this, Bruni gets a diagnosis.
CPTSD. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Directly linked to the bullying, right?
Yeah.
Not just one event, but the prolonged nature of it.
Exactly. CPTSD is often from that kind of ongoing trauma. It creates a wider range of difficulties than maybe single-event PTSD.
And he talks about struggling with antidepressants, too.
Yeah, the side effects, the difficulty finding something that worked, it just shows how deep those wounds go and how hard the healing process can be.
But amidst that struggle, he finds some comfort.
Yes, his dagger.
His dog. That sounds like a really crucial relationship for him.
Absolutely. He describes Jagger as providing this, like, unwavering support during his depression.
Sometimes it's that simple, unconditional love, isn't it?
It really is. The routine, the companionship. It sounds like a genuine lifeline, a reminder that support shows up in unexpected packages, you know.
True. And around this time, there's also more about his family dynamics. His father.
Ah, yes. That realization of feeling loved, but maybe not liked.
And suspecting it was because he was gay.
It adds another layer, doesn't it? To his own journey of self-acceptance, navigating that complexity.
That feeling of unspoken things, barriers within the family.
Especially when he himself was still grappling with it. It highlights that internal conflict.
Then things take another turn into the maybe more spiritual or psychic realm.
With Lisa Williams, the medium.
Right, producing that pilot, Life Among the Dead.
And those anecdotes are pretty wild.
The ground zero communication. The secrets in the Woolworths building.
Deafness, a Napoleon connection, and predicting a motorcycle accident.
It suggests he was exploring different ways of understanding things, maybe finding guidance outside the usual channels.
Perhaps looking for meaning, for connection, in places beyond the purely physical world. An interesting path.
Yeah. Then professionally, it's a real roller coaster for him.
Big time. Huge success at TVG.
Revitalizing horse racing, remote betting, leading to that massive $3 billion valuation. That's incredible.
Incredible, but then such a contrast with the GMA experience.
Oh, totally. Good Morning America sounds like a real clash.
His creative ideas hitting a wall of, like, rigid network culture.
And ultimately getting fired.
It really shows how unpredictable careers can be, right? Success here doesn't mean success there.
And how important it is to find the right fit, where your vision aligns with the environment.
Definitely. And during this time, there are also these encounters with celebrities, some lighter.
Like bonding with David Cassidy over the Partridge Family. A guilty pleasure.
Yeah, a nice little moment. But then meeting Carol Bayer Sager.
That one reveals a lot more insecurity, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. He admires her so much, feels unworthy.
And misses the chance to really connect at that fundraiser. It shows how those old feelings just stick.
Which brings us right to imposter syndrome.
He explicitly talks about that, right?
Yeah.
Linking it back to the bullying.
Yeah. Doubting his success, feeling like a fraud, despite all the achievements.
It's powerful proof that external success doesn't just magically erase those deep-seated feelings of not being good enough.
No, those internal narratives are stubborn. But then there are these really beautiful moments of healing, too.
Meeting Olivia Newton-John especially.
Oh, wow. That sounds incredibly significant for him.
Because her song, Don't Throw It All Away, meant so much during the bullying years.
Just imagine. And then the stories from her visit to KTLA.
Her being playful, signing posters, the surprise birthday party they threw for her.
It sounds like a genuine, warm connection formed.
And he talks about the aftermath, just crying with gratitude,
Yeah.
a real emotional release.
That's a beautiful, full circle moment. Getting to thank someone who unknowingly helped him through such a dark time.
Yeah. And then winning those Emmys for the KTLA Morning News.
4 Emmys. That must have felt amazing. Shared success.
Especially having his mom, Anna Mae, there to see it. A real high point.
A moment of real validation, you'd think. For his work, for the team.
Definitely. But the story doesn't just stay on the highs. It goes back to more personal, challenging ground.
Returning home to care for his mother.
Anna Mae, who had Lewy body dementia.
That's incredibly difficult. The reality of caregiving, the emotional weight of it.
His promise to remember for her. So poignant watching her memories fade.
It really highlights the complexities of family, doesn't it? That selfless act.
And layered onto that is this deep regret he carries.
About not telling Anna Mae he was gay.
Yeah. He explains why the shame, the fear, it would somehow validate what the bully said.
It's heartbreaking, because he also believes she would have been accepting.
Exactly. So that missed opportunity just hangs there, amplified by her illness and passing.
It speaks volumes about how long the shadow of bullying can be, how it can create this internalized shame that prevents connection even with loved ones. Such a deep regret.
Yeah. So finally, the excerpts get into his reflections on everything.
Yeah.
Bullying, healing.
His thoughts on school shootings are interesting. He sees bullying as a major factor, but not the only one.
Right. And he's very clear about his own choice against violence. Despite everything he went through, he grieves for everyone involved.
It's a nuanced view, acknowledging the complexity but still pointing to bullying's role. And his own path is one of resilience, not revenge.
He also talks very openly about that internal split, right?
Mm-hmm. Confident professionally, but insecure personally.
And making a conscious choice to be alone for a time, finding strength in that independence.
And then there's that revelation about nature.
Oh, right. Learning that same-sex behavior is actually common in the animal kingdom.
How powerful must that have been to realize that the shame and negativity he'd internalized were based on societal lies, not natural truth.
A huge step in dismantling those lies, you'd think.
Absolutely. And ultimately, he finds his way to forgiveness.
Even forgiving Declan McMahon, the bully who became a killer.
Which is remarkable. It's part of this larger spiritual journey he describes.
Meditation. Seeing himself as a spiritual being.
And understanding the power of forgiveness, including forgiving himself.
It sounds like a profound shift in perspective, a key part of his healing.
Definitely. And he has some very practical thoughts on preventing bullying, too.
Yeah, he really emphasizes the parent's role. Modeling behavior, watching for
The
signs.
father's role specifically in building confidence, holding schools accountable.
And even suggesting early self-defense training might make a difference.
It's grounded in his reality, offering concrete ideas.
And he wraps up with such a strong statement.
Don't pity me, congratulate me for surviving.
Exactly. Acknowledging the scars are real, they're lasting, but embracing his strength, his courage, his hope.
It's a powerful assertion of moving from victim to survivor,
Yeah.
really claiming his resilience.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Bruni's story, we've covered a lot.
We really have. The deep impact of bullying, obviously, but also those unexpected career paths.
Pivotal moments of self-discovery, complex relationships.
The whole difficult journey of healing from trauma and finding your own truth.
It's a very personal account, isn't it? But ultimately, quite inspiring. You get these unique insights into how trauma echoes, but also how people find resilience in so many different ways.
Absolutely. It really makes you think.
And maybe that's the final thought for you listening. Think about the unspoken truths in your own life. What power might lie in acknowledging them?
Just like Bruni found a deeper understanding by facing tough realities about himself and, well, the world.
Yeah. Embracing who we authentically are, the truths we carry. Maybe that's a key step for all of us on our own paths of healing and growth.
A powerful thought to end on.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.